Excuse me. I'm going to open the Public Safety Committee meeting and Committee of the Whole. Charlie, you can stay up here. Heather, come on up too. Heather, you can sit next to me.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to sit here or do you want to sit over there? It's also a Committee of the Whole. My name is Joe Devlin. I'm a chair of the Public Safety Committee, a counselor at large. To my right is the Ward 3 counselor, Heather Shand. To my left is Larry Junta, Ward 5. Ward 4, Charlie Tontar, another counselor at large, and one of the sponsors of this proposed ordinance that we're going to discuss is Afroz Khan, and then the Ward 1 counselor, Sharif Zed. And Molly Ettenborough is going to present. So I'm just going to give you a little review of how this is going to go. To anybody who's emailed me or talked to me or is here tonight, this will not come out of this committee tonight. This is not a subject that I think can be decided in one hearing. The sponsor herself said on the floor that we shouldn't rush this, that we should have several hearings, and that we should have significant dialogue on this because it is a change, and the process can get improved by people's input. So this will be a little free-form tonight, but I can't let it turn into a free-for-all. But I am going to have Molly present. Then I think we're going to have the public safety members, Larry Junta and myself, ask some questions. I might reserve my questions till the end to give others a chance, then allow other counselors through the Committee of the Whole, and then I might regret this, but I think the audience should be able to ask questions as well. There are committee members, this recycling and trash program committee members in the audience, also Molly, and then somebody from the DEP will be here as well. And I'll let Molly coordinate when people are asking questions. I just ask that you raise your hand and let me call on you. And just remember, be kind. I'm looking at most of the people in here, and most of the people have been kind at everything we've gone to and you've been to. Nobody has an agenda up here, and I think everybody's trying to do the right thing. I was going to make fun of Barry and say, except for Barry, but he's not here. So I'll say Charlie. Charlie's suspect. And then, but just remember, we can disagree, but we have to agree to disagree courteously, okay? So I anticipate this meeting generating maybe a little deliberation at the end. In public safety, we've had 2 meetings on most of our items because we can't talk about it out of this committee. So, because we're a quorum, 2 of us are a quorum. So, what I tend to do at the end of these is say, what do we think we need at the next meeting? Do we need anybody else? Do we need some questions? I probably would suggest that we stay away from the actual language today and just ask about the program and the goals, but and the implementation. But again, it's going to be free form, so I'll kind of let it go where it goes. All right. Without any further ado, Molly, do you need this? Okay.
I got one. Hi, everyone. So I'm Molly Ettenborough. I'm the Recycling and Energy Manager for the City of Newburyport. Welcome tonight. Thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. So tonight we're going to hear about our proposed solid waste plan in Newburyport. I'm sure you've all been hearing a lot about it. So it's twirling right now. Hold on. It's been waiting a long time to start. Sorry. That is not good. Hold on, I'll restart it, I think. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so where this all started is with our goals. Over a year ago, the city went out to bid, which we do every 5 years, for solid waste collection, hauling, and disposal contracts. We went out to bid last year, and we had major sticker shock. Our prices went up over almost 50% for collection and transportation. Recycling, we used to get paid for. We used to be paid $10 a ton, and we are now paying anywhere between $70 and $82 a ton. So we started looking at that and how the city could contain costs because of these market factors that we really don't have much control over. We also started looking at what we have as far as a city goes for planning. In our master plan, which was an extensive process for at least the work that I do around sustainability, we developed sustainability goals. We developed a clean energy roadmap, which is a very public process. We took all of those goals from those two processes and put them into the master plan. And our master plan specifically calls for reducing per capita waste generation and investigating economic incentives, such as pay-as-you-throw programs. And we also wanted to develop fair and consistent policies for all users because there are a lot of unfair practices that are currently happening. So we also made a declaration a year ago to reduce our waste by 70% by the year 2030. And that is a declaration that many mayors around the world have made. It's not just Newburyport. There are many mayors that have made that same declaration. Of course, we want to reduce waste and increase diversion to recycling and composting. Newburyport has a lot of options for people. We're actually pretty lucky that we have a recycling center that offers us many options for recycling and composting, and you're going to hear more about those two things shortly. And then again, as I said earlier, we want to come up with policies that are consistent, simple to understand, and transparent. We don't really have any regulations in our health department regulation policy book, and they're not clear, and people that are just moving here or developments that are coming in, it's not clear how things are decided around trash and recycling. So we want to make sure that all of that is fair, consistent, and transparent for all developers as well as residents. So why does Newburyport need to make changes for our trash pickup program? Well, our trash keeps going up every year. We've been watching. We thought we were doing such a great job with recycling, but every year our trash is going up and our recycling is staying status quo. And that has to do with population growth. It also has to do with the economy. When the economy's great, people are buying. It has to do with a lot of factors. So that's continuing to grow. We don't see that changing that much. The cost to collect, process, and dispose, as I mentioned earlier, has gone up significantly, over 50% since our last budget, and we were still over budget for what we had initially budgeted for. The global recycling market, I don't know if you all know about it, but there's been significant changes in the global recycling market. China was accepting a lot of our material because they were coming here to the U.S. with products that they were selling to us and going back with our recycling in those empty ships. Well, they were coming back, weeks and months later, opening up containers, and the smells were horrible because people were leaving food waste and not really doing a great job with their recycling material. So they put a stop to taking U.S. recycling, which put a huge burden on the U.S. market. So the U.S. market is now developing, and we're selling to other countries, and we're also trying to develop new markets in the U.S. But another really big problem for New England in particular is the loss of landfills, and disposal sites are shrinking. And there is also a legislative moratorium on the development of new incinerators. So Newburyport actually sends our trash not to landfill anymore. We used to have one on Colby Farm Lane, That's closed and capped. And we all know how that went. We don't want to do that again. So we send our trash to an incinerator. It's Wheelabrator in North Andover. These incinerators are all operating at capacity, but there is a moratorium on building new incinerators. They are very difficult to site. They call them waste to energy, and everyone thinks, oh, that's great, we're making energy out of them. They pollute, and they have a lot of residual ash left over that still has to be landfilled. And in that ash are, toxins and metals. So what's happening is not with Newburyport's trash, because we have a contract with Wheelabrator, is a lot of trash is being shipped out of the state in New England. And if you were in Texas or if you were in the middle of the country, you wouldn't be having this problem. But in New England, we do because of our density issues. So trash is being shipped out to places like Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, and some states are even starting to charge highway taxes for trash to be shipped through their states. So we don't want to do that either, because that will drive up our costs even more. We even had a for-profit hauler, Ben Harvey from E.L. Harvey, just a couple of weeks ago, plead with people, you have to stop generating so much trash. He was physically unable to get rid of trash. So they took about from that wall over there to, where people end, he was taking trash and bundling it in large bags and shipping it out of state. He had never had to do this before. He doesn't know what to do with all the trash that they have now. And Boston just went through bidding process. They didn't even get bidders on some of their trash, and they have no place to put it. So they're putting together some very serious zero waste options for the city of Boston, so they can deal with their trash issues as well. So it's a for-profit company telling us this, then, and they're in the industry, then it's serious. So, a year ago, we formed a waste committee, and we looked at a lot of different options. We've been meeting for a year for at least 2 or 3 times a month, and we looked at all the different options that we could possibly come up with. One was making no change, but we know what happens with that. We can't contain costs if we do that. We looked at the annual household trash fee, which favors high users. That we've seen a lot of towns that have tried that, and it doesn't really work very well. We looked at a full pay-as-you-throw program, which I have to say a lot of people were really in favor of. So 0 free trash for residents, but a lot of us weren't comfortable with that option as well. Our initial proposal to the council was 1 free bag, 1 free 15-gallon size bag. And we heard a lot of feedback from that, and we revised that proposal, and we applied for a grant with the DEP, and that grant will give us 1 free 35-gallon cart per household, and it will pay for that. And they are located over here, the 2 different types of barrels that you're more than welcome to look at later. So we think that program is the best one. If you go over that amount, you buy a bag at a local store and put it next to your trash can, and it will be picked up. Your limit to how much trash you can put out will not change, and you can still put out as much recycling as we've always done as you would like. But this way, people are kind of on a level playing field, and you still have a way to get rid of your trash in a responsible manner, and it's proportional to what you're generating. So currently, I think I was just starting to allude to that, we have unlimited recycling, and that will stay the same. We also, some people are worried, if we do a pay-as-you-throw program or a overthrow bag program, your recycling will go up, and that's going to cost more. Well, and we're going to make sure that you're recycling correctly. That's true, and we are very cognizant of that, but we have conducted 2 Recycle Right campaigns in the last year, and we will continue to do that, and that's just educating people about what is right to recycle and what is not. And we spend a lot of time out on the streets teaching people that, and we're happy to do one-on-ones with people or have sessions with people to teach them about that. Currently, you can put out a 96-gallon trash capacity per week. That will not change. We ran a pilot in the South End, and that was an organics pilot. We ran that for 2 years to see how that could potentially be rolled out in the city. There was about 400 people that participated in that, and it showed us how much weight we could take off with organics. And it was between 10 and 15 pounds per week. So when that program ended, we looked at the cost of doing that citywide. It was very high. We didn't think the city or the council had the appetite to take that on. So we negotiated a citywide organics program, and people can subscribe to that themselves. It's $1.89 per week, so it's about $100 per year if you would like to participate in that program. We have people from the South End that left the program, but we've had a lot of other people join the program, and there's about 430 people doing that right now. I'm sure many of you have been to our recycling center on Colby Farm Lane. We have extensive recycling drop-off on first Saturdays. We also have some hours during the week. We take everything from mattresses to electronics, metals. We take oil, antifreeze. We take a lot of things, and we try and help people. We also have a lot of social media options for people, Facebook, reuse, donation, and a lot of different programs for people. We also have repair cafes in Newburyport. We're very lucky to have a group of citizens who are very involved and run repair cafes, and that's fixing things for people. And we're starting a new program called a Library of Things and Share Bank. And the Library of Things will be items that you can check out from the library that you might not need on a daily basis. So we have lots of options here. We looked at what other communities are doing, and there are 153 communities in the state of Massachusetts that are doing some kind of program. So we're not blazing new trails here. 49% who provide trash service are pay-as-you-throw communities in the state of Massachusetts. Of those that are doing that, 95% are full pay-as-you-throw. That means they are paying totally for their trash. They don't get anything free. And it's about 5% that don't. The cities and towns around us that have programs that we have looked to model ourselves after is Manchester, which has a full pay-as-you program, and they have a free compost program. They have a free compost program because they have a site at their DPW where they are bringing their compost, and they have someone that's managing that site for them. So they don't have to bring it very far. Ipswich has a similar program to what we have proposed, and that's one 35-gallon cart, and they pay $2 for anything over that. And then they have a similar program with composting. It's $100 a year. Their trash actually went down 20% per household with their program. So we're hoping to see numbers like that in Newburyport, which would reduce our disposal costs. Topsfield has one 35-gallon cart and a $2 bag and no composting program at this time. And Beverly has a trash fee, and the people get 32 gallons a week. Plus, they pay for compost themselves, and then they get a rebate if they participate in the compost program. And then Gloucester is full pay-as-you-throw and $1.25 and $2.15 for trash bags, and they've seen a 25% reduction in Gloucester. So, how will this program work if it's passed? Everyone will get one of the carts delivered to their home, and along with it will be some information that will be hanging off the side of the cart to tell everybody. You'll be able to buy the overflow bag, so if you went over that amount, some weeks you may go over that amount, you will be able to buy your bags at local stores, and the cost will be $2 for the 15 or $4 for the 30. The recycling program, as I said earlier, will not change. You'll still be able to put out as much as you want as long as you follow the rules. And we want to emphasize to people that we're not here to generate revenue from this program, but to provide residents an incentive to compost and take advantage of all the different recycling options that we have in Newburyport. We're very lucky. We have a representative here tonight from the DEP, and I think she can speak to the number of things that Newburyport has and the programs that we have that many communities don't have. And, of course, we want to reduce trash, and we just feel it's kind of silly that the city is wasting money on trash. A big part of this is food waste. If you can get rid of your food waste, besides putting it in your trash, it's a huge benefit. It will take out a lot of the weight and a lot of the trash that you have. So it's just about sorting your waste, your food waste, and your recycling. We'll continue to offer the 3 options that we have now, which is the Curbside program. We have a free drop-off program right now at the wastewater treatment facility. And we also sell backyard composters. And we have a lot of people that that buy those. And we sell those at cost and below because DEP makes us do that. But anyway, that price right now, again, as I said, was $1.89 per week. The more people we get, however, with the compost program, the lower the price will go. So if we get lots of people participating in a compost program in the city, our prices can go down substantially. So through the process over the last 6 months, the questions that we've been getting, just the basic ones that we've been getting a lot of. So what do you do with your current trash barrel? We are going to say to people, just use it for overflow, for trash, or recycling. You can use it for leaves in the spring or fall, or bring it to the recycling center, and we will reuse it. We're also looking at, as the oil market goes up, the value of that type of plastic is going up, so we could potentially find someone that might even be interested in buying that plastic. Condos and apartments, that's a big concern for folks, how they'll be served. So we are saying that all current condos and apartments will continue to get service, but there'll be rules and regulations, and that will all be clarified for users. So a condo that has 63 units and has 2 large dumpsters, they're going to get free service or they'll get that free allotment for those units based on how many people and the number of gallons. If they're over that limit with those dumpsters, then maybe that dumpster size gets lessened, or maybe they don't, have as many dumpsters. But we'll look into all those with those individual condo units. And as I said, we're developing rules and regulations for all users, so it's very clear for everybody. That includes public roads, private roads, condos, etc. So it will become very clear. That will be part of the health department's regulations. That will be approved. It will be reviewed by the council and approved by the Board of Health as well. So we've written draft language for that as well. So what are some of the ways that you can reduce the amount of trash that we throw away? So again, we look at dividing up your trash, looking at what can be recycled, and that's both in your barrel as well as options in the city, as well as donations, as well. When people call us or come to the office, we give them all the different options. We have so much information for people. Maybe it's too much sometimes. But there's a lot of different avenues that people can take for lessening their waste. And then composting, which is a big one. We will continue to offer the 3 options for organic waste. And again, if we can increase that amount of people participating, we can lessen the cost. And what do you do with items that don't fit in the overflow bag? Those would be items like furniture and non-recyclables. Just like you do now, you come and buy a bulk sticker at City Hall. And maybe we can make that even more convenient by selling them with the bags at the stores, because I know it's not that easy to come to City Hall sometimes. The incentive to recycle, we get that a lot because recycling now we're not getting paid for and we're paying more. And right now it's a little bit more than trash. So, why should the city continue to do this if we're paying more to recycle than to throw away? Well, first of all, we're required by law. The DEP has strict laws, and there's banned items that we cannot be putting in the trash. Obviously, recycling helps protect the environment and conserve natural resources. It saves energy, it creates jobs, and it creates new demand. Waste reduction programs also reduce waste through waste avoidance. So it teaches you all these things. So when you start paying attention to it, you start learning how to deal with waste and how to do things differently and where you can go for things and who needs things. I mean, you might find people that need it. You might give it away to someone. You're just starting. It changes your whole mindset. of how you might be dealing with your waste. And, of course, everyone's been hearing a lot about the plastic bag bans around the state, around the country, around the world. I mean, there are the European Union wants to ban plastic bags. Countries are banning single-use plastic. Plastic is a huge problem. So, obviously, if things like that start changing, too. And then single-use items. It's sort of getting a lot of traction. And then, obviously, if you have any questions, you are welcome to call the office. And we have our waste committee here. Let me introduce folks. So we have our waste committee here. Most of them are here. They're sitting in the front row. I don't know if you all, I don't think you need to introduce yourselves, but we do have Sharon Kashida from DEP here with us, and Frank Giacalone is our health director, and then members of the committee that have been working hard on this. So thank you all for your help. Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, happy to. So we have Art Courier. Art, I'm going to stand up. And Art is a condo owner in Newburyport on State Street. Oh, turn around. Yes, thank you. Okay. We have next we have James Bruger. He is also on the planning board. We thought it was important to have someone from the planning board perspective where everything happens. And Jane Nicodemus, who is has a house in the South End and has a large family. Sharon Kashida from DEP. She's our regional municipal assistance coordinator for this area. Frank Giacalone is our health director for the city of Newburyport. I saw Yvonne come in a little bit later, and Yvonne works with the Council on Aging. We wanted to get that perspective as well. We had, Lauren Healy. Oh, and Sarah, sorry. Lauren Petty and Sarah Hall. And, and Tom Zabo, sorry. And Tom Zabo lives in the South End. And then we had a student from the high school that was on the committee, but she's now in Wyoming. But we've had some other students from our environmental club come, or from GOMI, Gulf of Maine Institute. They are here tonight as well. I think I got everybody. Yeah? Oh, Bob Barton, yeah, he's not here, but he is an investor, so we wanted to get a financial perspective. So we really tried to come up with a team of people that really broadened how we looked at things and gave us a perspective from everybody. And then we have one other, Kristen Walth, who is traveling, and she is a zero waste expert. She lives zero waste, and she knows absolutely everything about it. She has a PhD in economics and knows a lot about this industry. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes. So Barry Connell and Anna Froese also.
Thank you, Molly. Larry went to go find the lights because I can't see anything in here. So, yeah, to brighten the lights up a little bit, he's tucked through there. So I'll wait till Larry gets back here. I was going to defer to him first, but now I've lost Molly as well. All right. And if you don't get to sign up, I just stand up and we'll let you speak. So, okay. Well, it's all right. Maybe our chief administrative officer took some training on how to turn the lights up, and there he goes. So, Molly, I'll just ask a couple preliminary questions and then turn over to Larry. So, how was the committee chosen? The committee chosen? There's not. So last year, after we went out to bid for our trash and recycling contract, and we got our figures back and saw the sticker shock. Oh, David, our city electrician is here. Thank God for him. Thanks, Dave. I'll have to find out where that is. So the mayor asked us to form a committee, and that's when
I was just explaining when I was introducing everybody, tried to get kind of a broad scope of people representing every, condos, homeowners, families, business person, planning board. So tried to find people that covered the spectrum.
But it was chosen by you.
Yes, and the mayor approved. Yes.
Okay. So the fact sheet, it starts off with, faced with the 40% increase in waste removal expenses. To what is that referring to? Like
the 40%?
Right, because we've got 50% from the first 6 months of. I'm just trying to get a handle on the numbers.
Yeah. So when we went out to bid, our initial costs were close to 40% above what they were the previous year. And so if you include the recycling, the new recycling costs and not the rebate, that's how much our costs have gone up. Plus everything else, our hazardous waste costs, everything has gone up in the past year. And we have those fact sheets that he's referring to at the front door on the podium, if you all would like to take those with you, if you haven't seen them. We sent them to all the counselors, and and they are on the city's website, so hopefully they sent them out to you as well.
And so, are there any minutes for the meetings that you held?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are.
And those are available where?
They're not on the website, but we can certainly provide them for you.
Okay.
We have them in my office. We just don't have a section for... The website's very complicated, especially mine. But happy to provide those.
All right, I'm just taking down some notes here. Hold on.
I think that's a really good idea. Sorry for screaming, but maybe have a dedicated city website with the presentations, and we could also post those minutes too. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah.
That'd be great. So one of the stated goals, is to minimize waste. So how exactly is this going to minimize waste?
Well, I think once people start realizing that they only have so much room to put their trash in, they're going to start to look at their trash and say, how can I get it in this barrel? And they're going to look at all the different ways they can reduce. So they're going to look at food waste. They're going to look at recycling options. They're going to look at all the options that the city has. They're going to look at donation. They're going to look at reuse. They're going to look at everything.
Okay. And then have you done any studies, or did you look at the numbers with regards to the compost? If compost, let's say, removes 15 gallons a week, and it only costs...
I think the average is like 11.
What's that?
11 pounds per week.
I was just... but let's say 11 gallons a week.
11 pounds.
I'm sorry, pounds. I keep on saying that. How does that factor, and it's only $1.89 a week,
right?
Correct? So
per household.
Right. So how does that, what would that equal, as far as paying $2 and $4 extra?
So it's $100 per household to do that. But if we did it citywide, so we did get some numbers from Black Earth, and we have run some numbers. It would be, if you had less than, I think it's $1,500, it would be $175,000 more if the city ran the program itself. It can be expensive to do if the city did that itself. If everybody does it themselves, then that's a cost that individual homeowners are paying. And his numbers, of course, go up. And if the city did it, he'd have to pay prevailing wage. And there's a lot of factors.
So the $175,000 was if we did it ourselves?
If the city paid, citywide. Yeah, but no, it wouldn't cover every household. That's just for 1,500 households. And we have 8,000 households in the city of Newburyport. So if we did a full program, I'd have to look at his numbers. I mean, he has it broken down by tiers. But it could be as much as $350,000 if you did if everybody in the city participated. Yeah. Right. And most towns, so Sharon, you know this, the towns that do have composting programs citywide. What's the participation rate generally?
I have 7 communities in my district. I have 39 communities in my district. Obviously, Newburyport's one of them. 3 of them have community-wide organics collection. And it's really startling to see the difference between private pay, my 4 private pay communities, because the participation is optimally, I would say this is optimistic, is about 40% on the high side, versus we routinely see in Newburyport, Ipswich, Beverly, Salem, participation's 80 to 90% participation, and actually, as Molly said, 10 to 11 pounds per week, which if you take a sample of your trash every week, 10 pounds is a lot. It's significant.
All right, hold on. There's a lot of numbers getting thrown around here. So if a private pay, we're private pay right now, right?
Correct, yeah.
So what does it mean that there's 80 to 90% participation in Newburyport?
Right. So if it's private pay, right? If there are 100 people that are paying on a weekly basis, 80 to 85 or 90 of them are putting out compost. So you're paying for it yourself. I see. So you're invested, obviously, right?
Versus, I think, and now I see what you're saying, versus if the city was doing it, and it was a full city program, opt out or something, you might not participate. And we're still going to pay for it. Like trash. So right now the trash truck drives around to every single household, every single road. Sometimes you put out, sometimes you don't.
So you were saying that other alternatives were discussed, and this wasn't the first choice. The first one was the full pay-as-you-throw model.
The full pay-as-you-throw was the, most people really thought that's where we should be going, but we settled on the one bag.
But why? Like, what was the reasoning behind that?
Because people, pardon me? Reduction, yeah, waste reduction and costs.
Can I add to that as a member of the task force? And I actually want to say I volunteered to be on it, so I wasn't selected or anything. I heard about it and asked to be part of it. And when I joined, it wasn't everyone that wanted to do the full pay-as-you-throw. I want to clarify that. Not everyone was on board. It was actually a group of debate amongst each other, and some were not in favor, which is why we kept looking at other options.
But ultimately, the first choice was full pay-as-you-throw. From a vote?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It was the one bag. It was the 15-gallon bag was the initial, which
Okay.
you all got in February. So we've been doing this for a year, and we made an initial proposal to the council in February. We've been working really hard on this. Pardon me? 13 months. And we made an initial proposal in February to the council. Did not get a great response from the council or from residents for the 15 bag, and that's when we went back to the table. We talked again, and we had applied for the grant from DEP for the carts, and that's when we came up with the cart. So the first proposal was the 15-gallon.
Let me just go down to here.
The first bag free is what we called it.
Yes, first bag free, yeah.
So of the 154 other communities that are doing something similar, can you discuss some of the differences of the things that they might be doing? Are there some highlights or?
Yeah, I think Sharon would be good to talk about that. Do you have any big highlights for the 154? I mean, there's all different models of pay-as-you-throw.
Let's take this. So of the 153, most of them are drop-off. Pay-as-you-throw started in drop-off communities. If I live in a drop-off community, and let me say drop-off communities got the message about equity and about controlling your waste and saving money early on, because if you live in a drop-off community, you've always had to pay. So it's always been trash. People have made this connection between, okay, trash costs money, I pay for it. Curbside communities are coming on board with a vengeance, I would say. There are 16. Most of them are full pay-as-you-throw. That means whatever you throw away, you have to pay for. There are only 16 that are with the 35-gallon first barrel cart limit that Newburyport is proposing here tonight. All of them, with the exception of one, is a drop-off community. It's much easier to do this program with a curbside community than a drop-off. And so that really has kind of been the trend, is to, and let me say this, Topsfield was the town that introduced the first 35-gallon trash limit into this category, and there are 3 others in my district. Hamilton, Wenham, and Ipswich also have a 35-gallon limit, and it's gaining in popularity. So it's a combination of every single one is a little bit different. And I would say this, there's not one community, there's no cookie cutter to trash collection and recycling. And if I can just kind of depart here a little bit to talk about Newburyport in particular, because I do, as I said, I have 39 communities. You have a neighboring community, Salisbury, that doesn't offer any trash collection. Every resident that lives in Salisbury has to privately pay for somebody to come and pick up trash in their community. And what that means in Salisbury is you have a real mishmash of trash trucks driving down your streets 5, 6, 7 days a week. So it's not as organized, but probably the thing I want to talk about, the hallmark of Newburyport, and I've got other communities like Newburyport, but you're only a handful where they do everything they can for their residents to help them reduce the amount of trash that they throw away. And consistently, I've been in this job for 20 years, which you probably could tell. This has been consistent during my tenure in this position, is that the city works really hard to give its residents the tools to reduce its waste. Thank you.
And I just want to add.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? So on the DEP, you said most are drop-off. Of the 154, do you know how many are drop-off?
Pardon me? How many?
Yeah.
There are 95 that are drop-off and 58 that are curbside.
And I think the other thing that's really important to note is that a significant expense, the majority of the expense for our trash in Newburyport is the collection and the hauling. Those are the trucks. It's $900,000 to have Mello or whoever it is that the city hires drive through and pick it up in front of your house on the curb. So that's a significant convenience and expense. If we want to get rid of that, then people can bring it to Crow Lane. That's we can look at that, but we didn't even look at that option because how do you possibly take away that convenience? I think people would go ballistic if we did that, and we think it's a great service that the city provides. So that service, unless we can figure, and we talked about that. We talked about how can we reduce the collection and hauling costs? What can we do to do that? And that's why we went out to bid. And we went out to bid to see what different companies, Waste Management, JRM, Casella, would give us to do that. So Mello was they all came in pretty high, and then we negotiated with Mello, and they came down about 20%. So that's a really convenient and expensive piece of this.
So that's actually one of the questions that I had. Is that I was trying to figure out what the basic cost to operate the system was. Would you say that no matter how many, how we did it, that $900,000, like that's the cost of having trucks?
Yeah.
The trucks, the number of trucks we need for the number of households we have.
And their formula to figure that cost is the number of mileage, the number of households, how long it takes them, how many laborers they need, the cost of the trucks, the maintenance of the trucks. So they have this whole complicated formula. But we looked at, and these trucks have to go to North Andover. So they fill up here, and then they have to drive all the way to North Andover. If they don't fill up, then they come. If they haven't finished their route, then they have to come all the way back here. So.
Okay, yeah. So so it's about $1.5 million. That was the fiscal year 2019.
Yep, that's correct.
So, what is recycling versus trash in that? Like, is there a breakdown?
Well, right now, I don't know that number because it's changes every month with recycling, but I would say we have about 2,500 tons of recycling per year, and we have 5,500 tons of trash per year. So multiply that by 75 as an average, and then 68 for trash. So, yeah, that's easy. I mean, if you multiply it right now, you'll figure it out. But
All right.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
I have them. Just February 2019, there was a packet.
Right.
I'm not just so there is a sheet. Okay. Let me just make sure. Just some. So, do you anticipate us making any money off of recycling in the future? Like we have in the past. So I think you said it was $10 a ton.
Yeah. So in the past, maybe we were
Molly,
making.
let me just.
Oh, sure.
$10 a ton, and then did I get that $70 to $80 a ton now that we're paying?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So in the past, we used to make about $24,000 for recycling. That's obviously gone away, and now we're paying. I don't know. These are markets. These are commodity markets. We have no control over them, and that's one of the reasons that we feel it's really important to have a program like this in place where we can make sure that these market conditions that we have no control over give us some kind of control and give the city a way to not have sticker shock like we did. We hope so. I mean, I sent you all some reports today. There's some positive news coming out of the recycling industry. Plastics are going up because of the oil market, and the paper industry is actually starting to turn around. And the mills are being bought. There's domestic mills that are being established, and China is buying a lot of them. And, other companies are buying them. So the market is really starting to turn around. They see a huge need for cardboard. So that's going. But these are commodities that we have absolutely no control over.
So where does the recycling go now?
Our recycling goes to Casella in Charlestown. Casella separates it through a very, process-oriented facility. It's called a MRF, a materials recovery facility. It goes in, it gets dumped on the floor, it gets separated with fans and magnets and optical readers on a conveyor belt. And then each commodity that comes out at the end is bundled, and then they sell those commodities in bales, large bales. We have a great video on the city's website that kind of shows how the process works. They do tours, if anyone wants to do that. We have to schedule that, but yes, our group did that. And we can also do a tour of Wheelabrator where our trash goes as well.
So when you said we made $24,000 in the past of our recycling, does that mean we didn't pay anything and
Correct.
we got $24,000
Yes.
back?
Right.
How long ago was that?
Well, we were in a contract. The market had already fallen out. So we were in a contract until June 2018. So up until June 2018.
Okay. I've asked. Just a couple questions on the. How did the numbers for $2 a 15-gallon bag and $4 for a 30-gallon bag? How do we arrive at those?
Well, we looked at the cost of the bags, which is anywhere from 25 cents to 50 cents for us for the bag. And then I think we all just discussed what other towns were doing and what seemed reasonable. Obviously, it's up to the council because you all approve financial matters.
Does the company that provides these make a profit off of these?
Well, they make
out of the 25 cents to 50
they
cents.
Make money.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know what their financials are. We don't know that. We would enter into a contract with them.
Right. And so then hopefully some of the cost in the $2 and the $4 factored in what we had to do to cart it out. Okay. Right. Did the group do any? Do we have any research on our annual household trash? Like, has our amount?
Yes, a ton.
Hold on, let me just finish the question.
Yeah.
Has our amount gone up? So our trash fees increased 50% year over year last year, but did our trash amount increase 50%?
Yes. No, it did not. It did not increase 50%. So we used to be a little below 5,000 tons per year, and now we're about 5,500 tons per year, and that's gone up in the last few years. But it's not 50% by any means. That would be 10,000 or 7,500. So no, it's not corresponding to the amount.
So when 5,000 tons up to about 5,500. Okay.
Yep.
And then, did we do any studies on like what by demographics? How many we have families here? Do they have more trash or like? We don't have RFID tagging on barrels, so we don't really know that. I mean, we drive around and we all looked at different households and what people were putting out, and so we have estimates. And I think the EPA comes up with an estimate what people generate per week on average. Pardon me? Molly, can you give her the microphone?
The average set out was one barrel. Yeah. So we also had Mello looking at their routes to figure out what people were putting out. But we don't know the weight because they're not weighed on the truck. The whole truck is weighed when it goes to Wheelabrator. So the truck goes into Wheelabrator and it's weighed on a large scale. And that's where we get our tonnage figures. But we're not weighed at each individual house, and nor does each individual house have an RFID that we can do that.
Okay, well, just one last question. Did we so these bags will be supplied to what stores?
That's part of the implementation planning phase. We haven't talked to any stores yet, but in normal towns, it would be like a convenience store, the grocery store, so Market Basket, Shaw's, 7-Eleven, Black Duck, places like that, Lawton Cali.
And
whatever.
Part of the $2 and $4 goes to them as well.
No, I mean, I don't think most towns get a fee, do they?
Most retailers do it and just do it for the foot traffic that comes in. There are food communities that get paid for every bag that's sold.
So we haven't had those discussions with anybody yet.
But who would be responsible for ordering them for these stores? I mean, there'd be some manpower.
Yeah. So that would be the initial setup cost that we would do with Waste Zero, the company.
Right, but the stores would need to be able to communicate with people that they're out of stock.
Right.
One of my concerns is what happens if stores start running out of them.
Yeah. There's a process for that with Waste Zero. Absolutely. That's part of their customer service that they would provide.
Well, so
yeah, inventory management. Yeah.
Is this gentleman on the committee?
Oh, perfect.
Sure.
And we did this with like leaf bags.
Yeah, just 1 moment. Just introduce your name.
John Green, 12 Finnegan Way, Ward 6. The way we handle things like this is, yes, they will want some sort of reimbursement. It's not going to be a community service. That has to be negotiated. They're bought by the supply buyers or the buyer that would handle trash bags and things like that. So there is a process. The buyers would handle it. There is, Bruce, a risk that they could run out of stock, especially initially. I mean, you got to figure out the usage of the things. So, yeah, there'll be a process, and someone will have to be involved to go negotiate it with the different places. Now, I can't speak for, convenience stores. They use wholesalers. So that's a different process.
Sure.
So I hope that answers your question.
We should have had you on the committee.
Well,
you were hiding when volunteers.
No, I'll get to my questions when you guys give me permission.
So I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to let if Larry you.
Just ask you a couple of quick, and then we'll get to the rest. Not every. a household is going to need to be buying these bags. These are going to be bought by the people who are overflowing their 2 free bags that they can get into their cart. So not everybody is going to be flooding the market looking for these bags.
Can I just ask everybody that when you speak, just identify yourself again so that we can. I know you're a committee member. We were going to have everybody sit up here, but people,
Lauren Petty
didn't want to do it. But I understand too. It's embarrassing to be at the center of the attention. So
Lauren Petty, Water Street.
So my first question is, I've looked around at other communities that are doing pay-as-you-throw. Haverhill comes to mind because it's probably the closest. And they offer a 64-gallon barrel. I actually work in Haverhill, and I watched how that whole process was implemented. It actually went very well for Haverhill. I know a couple of city councilors there, and it felt fair and equitable to the neighbors and the residents. I'm just wondering, why aren't we following a model that's already been used effectively in other communities?
Well, I think we are, as I told you before. So Topsfield, Ipswich, Gloucester. So we did look at all those models. We did not look at Haverhill. Haverhill's a completely different demographic. We tried to follow towns that were more closely demographically than Newburyport, with households versus apartment buildings. And do you have anything to say about Haverhill? Do you know how things have worked there? Because I don't really.
The 64-gallon has worked well in Haverhill. I think when we talk about this, you have to look at each community and look at their starting point. And I think there's a lot more trash generated per household in Haverhill than you have here in Newburyport, because you have a lot more options to reduce it. I think if you gave everybody a 64-gallon barrel, you'd probably see your trash increase.
I'm just going to ask questions. I'll hold my comments. The feedback that I've gotten from people, and it's continuous feedback of, why would we be doing this when we haven't even got into composting? And again, it continues to be the same question. About an hour or so or two ago, I got an email from somebody, and they basically said, why aren't we just doing citywide composting first? Why aren't we reducing our trash weight? Composting is the most of the weight of our trash. Why isn't that step one? Step one's not even in the plan.
Right. So we did an organics pilot in the South End, and then we rolled it out citywide. And we do have a composting program in Newburyport. It's self-pay. So we don't have a lot of people that have signed up. And if you want to do that, I would love to do that. But are you willing to spend $350,000 more to do that? That's the question.
Well, and again,
we were trying to look at ways of reducing waste, reducing costs, like overall how we could do that. So if this council is willing to step up and do that, we would love to do that.
Well, it's just one of those questions where if you did composting and you're reducing your trash number in tons, how much are you going to save? Is it going to be a break even?
No,
or
it's not. You're going to lose money.
It's just the question of if you get 85% participation. And then again, if we're really looking to reduce waste, if that is our goal above selling bags, if we're really looking to reduce waste, wouldn't that, again, be step one? It's been a really common question.
Well, I think people like to recycle, and they see that as a form of recycling. But not everyone likes to compost. People don't like to get into that. But it is very expensive. It's more expensive to do that.
And one of the other, I look at the three things that, our sort of mission statement is cost containment, reduce trash, and fair to all. And, I mentioned the 64-gallon because I do feel like it's fair to all, meaning if I was a single person in the house, I might just be putting one bag in there, but if I'm a larger
first of all, Mela will not accept a 64-gallon barrel because they're too heavy to lift for the laborers, so that's off the table right off the bat.
Well, it could be 232s, but just the idea. And then the second was reducing trash, which gets into the compost, which is a good idea. And then the last is the cost containment. And the question on the cost containment is if we reduce people down to 32 and we force people to do more recycling, which I agree, from Mother Earth is a good idea, but some of the numbers that I looked at recycling, I think in January we paid up to $90 a ton for recycling. So recycling is a lot more than trash is.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying before. It's a commodity. So the markets are right now, the last year they've been high, but as I was saying today, the numbers are coming out. There's more domestic markets for it, and it's developing, and more plants are coming online.
But if we're not containing cost,
but again,
it comes back to compost.
You're not just curbside recycling. Remember, you're recycling. You're thinking about everything that you can, and it doesn't have to go in your curbside barrel. It can go to a donation center, or it can be given to somebody else.
This is Jane Nicodemus from Parsons Street, and I think what Sharon was saying is if we did offer citywide compost covered by the city, you didn't have to pay out of pocket. What she's saying is the participation rate, if we offer that, is at most 40%, but more likely like around 25. So you're going to pay $350,000 and only have 25% of the households participate. 75% of the households do not participate. So you really don't reduce the trash in any significant way, but the costs go up a lot. So that's a practical consideration. I think all of us environmental types would love citywide compost without cost. I'd love to offer that, but I think from a cost perspective, it's a little prohibitive right now.
I'm going to start off with the rest of the council of the whole. I'm going to start off with Heather Shand.
So of the other communities that have the 32-gallon barrels, what has their cost reduction been? Have they been doing it long enough to determine if they're...
Well, I think we saw the Ipswich was 20% less, and Gloucester was 25%, but that was trash. I don't know their cost.
So, yeah,
I just know their trash was reduced by 20 and 25. Sharon, do you have any other numbers on pay-as-you-throw communities, what their average reduction is? Not cost-wise, because we're not going to know that, but tonnage or pounds-wise?
It goes back to that point about what is your starting point. And Ipswich, they've both done this a long time ago. And the comparison to Ipswich and to Gloucester is if the city of Newburyport were to have the same results as Gloucester would, trash would be reduced by 25%. And that's a full pay-as-you-throw program. Everybody has to purchase a bag. In Ipswich, everybody gets the first 35-gallon barrel for free. If Newburyport were to have the same comparable results, see the same reduction in pounds per household generated, you'd see a 20% reduction. And I'm not sure if your question was also about increases. And, unfortunately, the markets have been, not just the recycling markets, but as Molly has pointed out, that we've got a disposal crisis in the state. So at the same time that Newburyport went out to bid last year, so did Ipswich, and their prices went up similarly. So it's... Well,
and then we'll tell the story about Merrimack. So when we went out to bid, Merrimack asked to join us on our bid. So we went out to bid with Amesbury, thinking we'll get economies of scale if we partner with another town. Merrimack asked to join us. So when I approached Wheelabrator and said, all right, we want to, Wheelabrator and Covanta are the two incinerators in our area. We want to add Merrimack. They said, nope, sorry, we can't take you. We don't have any room. Merrimack is teeny. They have 500 tons per year. They couldn't handle them. So finally we convinced them. They're small. They're really not going to generate. They're a pay-as-you-throw community, so they did allow them. But there is a severe disposal crisis as well.
So if we were generating 5,000 tons and the 32-gallon barrel is what Ipswich got, and they went down 20%, we'd probably go down to 4,000 tons. Am I getting the math right?
They might get what?
Or would we be down to 4,000 tons? That's where I'm kind of trying to get.
Yeah, we're at 55 now, 5,500. Okay. Yeah,
right.
So if we go down 20%, yes, exactly.
So, all right, got the math.
Yeah, so then our disposal rate would go down.
But they're paying, as Councilor Ginger just said, they're composting, but they're not, the city's not paying for their composting. They still have to pay for their composting. It's not fully.
Right. Correct, Ipswich people self-pay. Yes. Yeah.
They self-pay.
They self-pay. This town does not pay for them. Right. But we can get creative here with composting. We have one free area, drop-off area right now. We can get more creative with that. We can have some free areas around the city for people to drop off. We can, let's start getting creative with composting and figure out how we can do more of that to reduce our costs without having that huge increase if we did citywide, if we did mandatory citywide, because I don't think that would work.
Go ahead, Charlie. Sorry, but Charlie, you're next.
Molly, we're that approximately 50% increase from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19.
Right.
So in fiscal year 18, our cost was $1,047,676. So we were projecting $1,587,774. We don't have those numbers yet. It's too early to get the financials.
No, yeah, no. I haven't had time to do that. Sorry.
All right, but
For fiscal year 19?
yeah,
No, it just ended last
close. Are we getting what we?
week. Yeah, I mean, can certainly work on it, but I've been working on getting ready for this, so.
Okay, and so I'm looking at the first zero waste document that we got in February,
Okay.
and looking at the options, and looking at the 54 free bags for each household, and with the provision of a 30-gallon bag, right, which is less than the 35 pail, and the reduction from today was estimated to be 5%, but now
Very
you're saying
conservative
which is
numbers
20%.
That was just, Waste Zero saying just be very conservative with your numbers. We have no idea. We really don't know.
Yeah, so that's the answer I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
So we don't know what the size of the reduction will be. Although there are a lot of other communities that do this, so we could get some sense from that.
I think
right?
what Waste Zero was thinking is that Newburyport's already pretty good with recycling, so they were saying you should be conservative with your numbers. But we've seen with Ipswich and Gloucester, which are a little different than us, but similar.
Okay, so then we don't really have a sense of how many people would have to buy the extra bags, do we?
No, of course not.
No modeling
and
on that at all.
it's going to vary from week to week. Right.
Sorry, I can't hear.
And the idea is if people have to buy the bags, they might start rethinking their waste methods and consciously try to reduce, so that they don't have to buy the bags, which is sort of the idea of the program.
All right, so I've been getting emails, as we all have, and there's some people couldn't make it tonight, so I just want to express what they've been telling me. So I have one set that basically support the program, but a number of people who do not support the program, and they argue, A, it's unfair to large families, B, it's actually a hidden tax increase, C, and people will tend to sneak non-recyclables into the recycling bin. And so, in other words, there's an incentive to cheat, all right? And they also argue that there would be illegal dumping. So I think the council would benefit from answers to those concerns.
Okay, so the first question about large families, we hear that as well from large families, and they don't think they can do it, but what we'd like to say to them is we'd be happy to work with large families and help them figure out a way that they could do that. I think that there's a lot of families that actually can fit into one barrel. You just have to be really conscientious about what you're doing, but we would be certainly happy to work with them on that. And I think that there's obviously a lot of alternatives to what they're throwing away. I know I right now have my niece, nephew, and their baby, and my sister and my husband. So there's 6 of us in our house with diapers, and we are still fitting in less than 35 gallons. And that's been for 2 months. And I'm food waste composting, and they're not. So I know it can be done personally, and I know that there's other people that do it. So that's question number 1. As far as what was the second one?
So this is hard for you.
Oh, hidden tax.
It's a hidden tax.
Yeah. Well,
increase.
I mean, yeah, that's what people are going to say. It's a fee, but it's a user fee. It depends on what you use. I mean, you don't have to pay any tax at all. You don't have to pay any fee at all if you can stay within the bounds of the program. So it doesn't have to be a fee. And people say, oh, these are fees everywhere. Well, there's a bus fee. Those are user fees, and there's an athletic fee. There's a user fee. Those are fees that people are making a choice. Where people still need to remember that we have the convenience of the trucks coming to the curb to pick up the trash. That's not going away.
There was a period of time when DEP was recommending that the pay-to-throw be revenue neutral to communities. I think in this kind of hybrid.
So this would be a hybrid.
Very difficult to do.
Yeah, this is a hybrid program where we're allotting some.
So the other concerns were with the whole cheating problem. People will put trash in the recycling bin on the one hand, or they'll engage in illegal dumping.
Right, and so I know that Waste Zero has worked in a lot of these towns, and they have not. All their studies that they've done have not seen illegal dumping. We already have an illegal dumping problem already, so I don't see that really being exacerbated, and we have processes for dealing with illegal dumping. We have no problem going through trash, and that's our office as well as DPS, and figuring out who's doing what. We're getting people at the schools and at the yard waste facility and different places, so I don't see a problem with that. Plus, we have cameras everywhere now, so I think people are a lot more conscientious about that. And as far as putting illegal stuff in recycling, we work really hard to educate people, and we have now this DEP program called Recycle Smart and Recycle IQ, which is what we've done twice already. And we will certainly educate people that if there is contamination, the city could be, fined. So I think that people understand over the past almost 2 years that they really need to recycle right.
Well, I mean, in terms of incentive, if as an individual, what do I care if the city's fined? I'm getting away with something.
Yeah, well, then you're that kind of person.
Yeah.
Right, that's fine.
Not me, by the way. Thank you.
Hold on, Laurel.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I forgot to announce Laurel Hankey. I'm so sorry. You were sitting way back there. So Laurel Hankey works in the office and was on the Waste Committee as well. And we also have Emily Patterson, who is an intern with us this summer.
So one specific thing that the Waste Zero rep said regarding the fear of illegal dumping was that what they found was that if communities kind of jumped on enforcement and education in the beginning, that problem would go away. So there's a strategy involved.
And just one last comment. I think from what I've been writing back to people writing me about this is, I think the first question is people have to answer is whether or not there is a problem, right? Whether there's a problem in the city, whether there's a problem in the state, whether there's a problem in the country, whether there's a problem in the world.
Yes,
and,
there is on all of those.
You can answer no to that, all right? But if you answer yes, and then it seems incumbent on us to answer. In Massachusetts, as you said, we are now exporting 22% of our trash. Right. And that's expensive. We're sending it to Virginia. We're sending it to Ohio. Right. It's expensive.
Right, and the costs are going to continue to rise for that reason.
And so one just point, the supply and demand problem with the decrease in the supply of landfills, all right, results in the higher cost. So the way that a problem with waste articulates itself to one municipality is we face higher costs. All right, and that's as a result. I mean, of fewer and fewer landfills, no more incineration, right. And that is being driven in New England mostly to protect water supply and to environmental protection of resources. So.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. Exactly right. Thank you.
I'm done.
I will defer since I was on the task force, so I'll pass it along to the fellow counselors.
Okay. Thank you.
Jared Eigenman, Ward 2. So I've been getting mostly emails in favor of the program from Ward 2, but what I write people back is that I'd like to see some tweaks. I don't see the program of pay as you throw as binary or black and white. For one thing, we do have, even if it's $350,000 to subsidize citywide composting, we could do something less. So, for example, if low-income households need help, I know in Malden they don't have to pay for bags. We could do the same thing here. We could subsidize composting for those that feel they can't afford it. But the bottom line is we probably are just producing too much trash. The first thing we try to do in my house is reduce. So recycling and reusing and all that, there's a reason that the phrase goes and starts with reduce. If everyone could reduce. And I am persuaded by the data that I saw from other communities, whether it's Malden or Wrentham or Ipswich, that we are seeing reductions. People, the tonnage is going down when some limit is put in. I did, question Molly and others on the size of the can, but I understand, you get diminishing returns if you make the can too big. So I respect Councilor Junta's question about 64 gallons, but I think for Newburyport we could probably get away with something smaller than that. So that's where my thoughts are right now. I don't have any questions right now.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with questions as well. So my first question is, if I could ask the DEP representative, I apologize, I've already forgotten your name, but can you explain why DEP has a policy of no new incinerators and no new landfills? Is it to try and corral municipalities into taking this type of action? It seems like I don't understand why, and I'm curious because if we are shipping, and we're not a Newburyport, but if communities are shipping, is it having the opposite impact desired? If you're creating more transportation and more hauling, more cost and more waste, frankly, for the environment. So is it DEP regulation or is it state law, and why? Why is that a new mandate or directive?
So my name's Sharon.
Thank you. Sorry.
This question's probably above my pay grade, so let me just say that. They revisit the moratorium every few years, and the state also goes through the process of producing a solid waste master plan every 10 years, and we're at the end of approaching the end 2010 to 2020. They've actually opened it up to other forms, and I'm not retrieving the right word, but there are other opportunities, and people haven't come forward with that. There's a loud and a very loud lobby against allowing more incineration. So, for instance, there's an incinerator in the town of Saugus. I believe it's the oldest one in the country, actually. They have a pad to have a third burner, and if you lived in Saugus, I'm sure you wouldn't want them to have that pad. So I think it's not just the DEP, it's they're listening to different stakeholders, but I would be misleading if I didn't say that it also promotes waste reduction. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it helps. Thank you. Next question is, so the increase in tonnage that you've referenced, Can you quantify how much of that is from new development versus, are you saying that household trash is increasing, or is the 5,000 to 5,500 a function of new units, new housing units being and other things being?
No, I don't. I think it's a combination of the things. I don't think it's just from new housing. We don't have that much. We're allotted, no more than 5% as far as Mello goes in new development. So, maybe there's, I don't know off the top of my head, but I wouldn't say more than 100 per year, new households. But as I said earlier, I think a big function of it, and an economist will know this, when the economy does well, people spend money and they generate more trash. And our economy is doing really well right now. So I think that's a big part of it. But obviously, yeah, there is population increase as well.
Okay, so the next question is just about how this, so the way that you cost containment, the term cost containment has been brought up several times. So the way that this contains cost is basically you're trying to set a bar and say the city's going to pay up until this much. And actually that bar is not fixed because cost could change and it could move. But the containment really only comes from the fees that are then paid by users. So I'm trying to explore this revenue idea because I too have heard that this is a new revenue for the city. And to be honest, having lived through some different fees come up, there's always an impetus to move the fees up, and then, things aren't hitting the targets that, which I think is kind of what Charlie and I both sit on budget and finance, so we tend to ask similar questions about, modeling and finances and all those things. So my question basically is if the bag sales are low, which arguably would be a good thing in some ways, arguably would be a bad thing. And, for example, enforcement that Laurel just mentioned has a cost too, right? So, and then we have Waste Zero and all this. So I'm trying to get around this revenue question and how or why residents, I get that it's a user fee, but it is a revenue source for the city. And so. Yeah,
but we are not actually looking at this as, here's a new revenue source and we're going to start a new accounting program for the city to make money on the bags. We are not looking at it like that at all. As I said earlier, we're really trying to come up with ways that we can teach people about reduction and prevent future spike hikes like we've seen in the past.
Okay.
If we send less trash to Wheelabrator, they charge us per ton. Yeah. So if we generate fewer tons, then we get charged less by Wheelabrator.
Right, but this goes back to the core of the expected drop in trash. I mean, it's a circular discussion. At some point, you have to come back to the numbers. So, so obviously, the ideal scenario is the trash disappears. It just no longer exists. That's the best case. But the other cases are it gets diverted to recycling, which has a higher cost per ton for today. Unknown where that's going. Could go down, could go up. It could go to other. It could have diversion to recycling that's wrong, which has been a concern I talked to Molly about, would be increased contamination rates driving our costs higher there. So you kind of, so if we send the same amount, right, just hypothetically, if you only assume 5%, which is nominal decrease as was, then essentially your costs are the same, and so your containment comes in. And when I saw the numbers from the Waste Task Force, there was a big spreadsheet I looked at. The savings were like $114,000, but it was basically exactly the amount of the fees. So it's hard to say that it's not. I mean, at least the way I'm reading it is you need the fees in order for this to work. And in order to get the fees, you need the trash, and that doesn't help with the other goal. So I'm kind of going in circles a little bit, but you can see how my thinking is.
I don't think it can be answered financially like that.
Art Courier, I just wonder about the fact that I think the City Council has the capability of making this an enterprise fund approach, whereby all the monies would stay in, so monies gained would be used to perhaps offset composting. But I think you have that purvey, so the management of the economics, you can set that up, I believe.
I do know, I think Nantucket maybe has an enterprise fund. That was the only one that I could find searching.
Yeah, and that's because
I know I know the public wants to speak, so I just want to ask two last questions, and then I'll get out of the way. If we implement this program and our costs go up as a result of diversion to recycling, let's say, at a higher cost, would we still consider that a success? In other words, and this is a question I asked Molly and others early, what is the top priority? Is it the trash or is it the cost? Because in all the things I've looked at, I often find they end up at odds with one another. Sometimes lower trash, and actually you would expect that because lower trash is better and usually you have to pay more for better things. So I'm trying to understand the task force head about when these two goals do not align. and they can't align, and I'm not saying they always can't, but let's just say they can't, which is the higher priority? Is it to contain the cost, or is it to reduce the trash? And if we have to pick between one or the other,
I don't understand why you have to pick between one or the other, because it's both. It's not. I don't say it as one or the other. I mean, it's a whole full program. It's about waste reduction. We are hoping we're containing costs. We're also helping to contribute to the state's issue with disposal. I mean, it's a whole host of. So I don't think we should be pigeonholed into one or the other.
Okay, it's just a question for now. I mean, I have a view on that. I'm not sure I agree respectfully. I do think at some point they come at odds with one another, so that's a question or a problem to be dealt with. The last thing is just a concern, and I won't ask it as a question because I think Charlie's kind of hit it, but the core of the proposal is that there's some amount of trash that we consider fair. That's sort of the core, right, is that there's some amount, the core of the proposal is there's some amount of trash that we consider fair, reasonable, and my concern is if we don't know how many households it's going to hit, and we don't know really what the average is today other than driving around, that's really challenging. Like, for example, when we do zoning, the first question we ask is if we change the zoning, how many households? And it's very quantifiable. We can say, okay, it's this neighborhood, this neighborhood.
Well, we do know how many. We do have an average household figure. And we have it right here because I have to do that every year. I have to report to DEP every year what we're doing. I have to on all. All of our data.
Is it average household gallons or weight?
It's pounds.
Pounds.
Yes.
So that's my other problem is that.
Yeah.
What's a 35 gallons? It could be 50 pounds. Well, that's probably high, but it could be a big amount or it could be nothing. But anyways, I'll yield.
No, we have to track all that data. I mean, you've seen in our annual report that we do. We track everything.
That'd be great if you had information.
Well, it's in the annual report that you get with the budget.
Okay.
It's in that report.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is Jane, really quick. I guess if I was looking into the future and seeing that the landfills are closing, the incinerators are at capacity, and you can't build anymore, then that must mean that the costs are going to continue to rise for trash disposal. It's just the writing's on the wall. So to contain our trash, I think, is fiscally prudent.
I'm Yvonne McQuilkin, and I've been on the Mayor's Committee, and I live on Purchase Street in the South End. I think a large part of this is going to be the education. And the education I've gotten since being on this committee has really changed my behavior. I used to, if I had scraps of material or something, I'd just throw it away. Sometimes clothing that had worn out would just be thrown away. Now I found all the places I can take materials. Lots of clothes go to the lighthouse. And I try to find any way to get rid of something without putting it into the trash stream. And I think that's the mentality that we all need to take on. And I think the young people here agree.
Okay, Joe, do you want to open it up? Or?
Yeah, so probably got no more than a half hour, even though Larry was pushing me a little bit earlier. But we're all here, so I don't want to. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask right now? Okay. Why don't you raise your hand? And we'll just start. We'll start in a row. John, did you want to ask a question first? Molly. Okay.
It's Mike Lambert,
I'm going to
58
go
Merrimack.
row afterwards. Okay, hold on, Mike.
My question is, we have a flat, $900-something, $1 million for them to come and drive around. But do we actually get print out the truck 452? We get that from the scale at Wheeler Brady. You get that on a regular basis? Monthly? So you could. So you can tell that truck 52, which went through 7 or 10 streets, how much. So you have a lot of data.
We have all this data. Yeah. I just don't know what each household is. I know the truck on the route. So.
Molly. Yeah. Why don't we?
Yeah. Sorry. They start in Plum Island on Monday, and then they end on the West End on Friday. So I know what trucks are doing. Every day. They go into the scale in Wheelabrator. I get that printout from them, and I also get a report from Mello, and we compare them to make sure that no one's lying.
Okay, why don't we start with John? So we'll go row to row because there wasn't a ton of people, and then I'll let everybody do public comment too.
I'm not sure whether my question is directed this way or this way.
Well, I'd like to keep it directed to the people. For us, we're all just getting informed on this, so I'd like to try to keep it directed at the presentation.
Then I'm going to pass on till the open comment session.
All right, who's next? Let's.
We're going to go row by row.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly.
Hi, Mel Nagler, 3 Market Street. Just have a quick question. I'm fairly new to learning about this, but it's been clear about the 1 barrel per household. But somebody said something about 2 bags. Is there? Did I misunderstand something? Okay.
2 different size bags when you 2 different size bags. So if you go over the barrel, you can put 5 bags. I can fit 5 bags in that. Yeah.
Your question about the different bags.
Oh, hold on, Frank.
Frank Giacalone, I'm the Director of Public Health. And in discussing the bags that you buy are only for the overflow. So in the first barrel free, you can put any size bag that you want as long as it doesn't overflow.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, next row, Ginny, or Miss Aremo, sorry.
Hey, Ginny Aremo. I live at 28 Toppins Lane, but I also have a business on 58 Merrimack Street. And what hasn't been discussed tonight is the impact on businesses, because I'm looking at the ordinance on the city website, and it's excluding the majority of the businesses in the city, which presently do receive trash pickup.
So the only businesses in the city of Newburyport that are supposed to be getting trash are the downtown district, of which you are. So if you're outside of the downtown district, you are not eligible as a business. They should be paying for themselves. This is another way we can ensure that businesses aren't sneaking their trash, and we know that they are. We know that there's businesses that are not in the downtown that are using the city's trash. So this will ensure that you will continue to get service.
All right, next. Oh, you have your own mic. Oh, can you hand it right up to that gentleman? Right behind you.
Oh. Thank you. I was just wondering, is there any way of...
Hold on. Name and address, please.
Charles Gaylord, 311 High Street. And I just had my trash picked up today, and there was a plastic chair in it. So I'd want to be able to continue to... throw unusual loads that are just nothing special, but just have them picked up. But I have a question about, is there a way, currently do they pick up the trash?
Charles, can you hold the mic up?
Yeah.
Currently, do they pick up the trash by ward, or do they just pick it up by mixed wards and streets?
Yeah, so they have a route schedule, and as I said, starts on Palm Island on Mondays. It's not just Ward 1, it's Ward 1 and 2. And then, they just go through the city west all week. So it's not by ward.
I was just wondering if you could implement this where you didn't do it when you started off saying a 15-gallon bag, and now we're at 32.
Right.
You said, okay, 2 bags, which would be like your 64. And you could load that in there the same way we're doing now. But at the same time, on a piecemeal basis, say we're going to take 1 ward and we're going to try to implement in that ward 100% compost. And instead of it being the Black Earth going to back to Gloucester, they could go to some place that we could give them in the industrial park where they could have a compost.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that idea. It's great.
And just see how that works. And so the people would be charged if it was over the 2 barrels, but they could have a free barrel to put compost in. I presently use the Black Earth and have for about a little over a year.
Right.
And 3 people on our street of 6 people, it's a dead end, Brooks Court.
Right.
I don't see anybody throwing out trash more than 1 barrel.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, there's one family that has kids, and they have more than 1 barrel. But that's, I think that's a problem.
Right, and that's what we did. So we did do an organics pilot in the South End for exactly that reason, to kind of figure out how that would work, how the route would work, how much tonnage we would get, kind of logistics.
But if you had one ward
that we rolled it out in, and I like the idea. If we can find, and I've spoken to Black Earth about this, if we can find a a closer place to drop off the compost versus going all the way to Manchester or Hamilton or Ipswich, is where they go now, then that would potentially decrease costs as well.
But I don't think it's fair to families, young families. I'm done with that. My kids are gone. So I don't have to worry about that. We do like half a bag.
Right.
But I don't think it's fair to, I don't know what I would have done 30 years ago if I couldn't have thrown,
Right.
3 barrels away.
Right.
Yeah, because your battery was filled with all the batteries.
Well, and the other thing you have to remember is packaging is changing rapidly. So there's a whole new industry. It's called package engineering, and packaging is changing. So it's not the same as it was when your kids were young, but package engineering is changing, and it's called lightweighting. So everything that is being made now is completely different, too, as well.
All right. Thank you, Molly.
Hello, I'm John Demerit. I live on 10 Woodland Street. I've read the newspaper articles and some of the things that are on the website of the city, and you guys are all very smart people, have a lot of numbers you've looked at, I can see. But one thing that is absent in this is kind of the elephant in the room is what are you going to do with all the trash containers that we have now that are going to be disposed of? And is there any cost associated to that to the city? How do you plan to pay for that? Or would you consider an option of maybe having a bumper sticker or something that we could put on existing trash cans within a scope of size? I personally think 35 gallons is not realistic. I think half of the 96 we're allowed now at 48 makes a lot more sense.
Okay, so you are allowed to still put out 96. Remember that.
Yeah, if I pay for the bags, right?
You're still allowed to put out 96. Everyone needs to understand that.
I understand that, but the point is you're charging
free,
people for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as far as the barrels, we did talk about that in the slide, and we have thought a lot about that. So we're telling people you can keep your barrels, and you can reuse them as overflow for your recycling. And we have stickers. We have giant bumper stickers for those. You can use them for leaves in the spring or the fall. You can bring them to the recycling center. We use them all the time because we collect electronics in them. And then they go to the electronics company, which recycles all that plastic. And then I was looking at ways that we could potentially, if the plastic market comes back, that we could look at potentially selling some of that plastic. But we will definitely use them if you don't need them.
So there isn't a plan to take them from the residents?
No, we do not have a plan right now to pick them up for you, no. But, so if you want to get rid of them, obviously if someone had an issue and they called and said, there's no way I can get this, but I think a lot of people will. I mean, Sharon, what you've seen in the past with other communities, most people are keeping them? Yeah, people repurpose. People do repurpose them.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Dave Zink, 6 Laurel Road. First, I want to say I'm very glad I came tonight because I learned a lot that I did not know prior to being here. But there were a few questions come to mind. Isn't a standard recycling barrel 64 gallons? All right, so what you're proposing for 32 gallons is half of that. So what you're proposing for a 15-gallon bag is half of that.
Yes, but you have to I mean, I put 5 15-gallon bags or 13-gallon bags in mine. So it depends on how much it squishes down. So it's not, you're talking about pure dry weight, and you have to think about how things squish down. So it doesn't work out that way. Try it at home.
Okay.
You'll see.
When the triplets were young and they were babies, I think I might have filled a 32-gallon bag just in diapers.
Right.
Because I was changing about 150 a week. So the size bothers me. I think it's a huge jump to go from 3 barrels allowed now to one 32-gallon barrel. I like the proposal of 64 gallons. You said there was a weight concern that the Mellow won't do 64 gallons. So maybe Mellow will do 2 32s. The airports did that. They didn't want baggage over 50 pounds. So they implemented no more than 50 pounds per bag. I think that would be doable. Even with that, for houses putting out 2 and 3 barrels that are approximately equal to the recycling, especially 3 barrels, and the new limit is 32 gallons, those people, if they don't change their ways, would have to buy 5 bags. that's like $200 a quarter. In Salisbury, we have a property in Salisbury. My son lives there. We pay for pickup. It is $90 a quarter. Just went up to $90 a quarter. Unlimited barrels. Recycling optional. Why are all these penalties on us and not through Mello? Mello picks up over there as well. Why are all these penalties on us in Newburyport, but they don't seem to be over there in Salisbury?
You just said they went up too, so they're getting hit.
They just
too.
went up to 90 a quarter. Unlimited barrels. Yeah, recycling is free, but that seems terribly unfair that we have all of this cost and expense and they don't. For short term, certainly I see it's viable to, if we had 64 gallons, I think people that exceed 64 gallons would see 64 gallons as achievable if they just recycle a little more. So I think starting with a 64-gallon limit will start people recycling a little more, being a little more careful. It's almost like everybody knows losing a little weight and being healthier is a good thing, but you can't force people to just all of a sudden go on the Pritikin diet. It's just too harsh and too short term. Certainly I can appreciate the costs. I had no idea that the cost had jumped that much. And for years, 20 years ago, I thought that the city should put in a small trash-to-energy plant. I know there's problems with ash and that sort of thing, but if you look at that maroon curtain, if you have that much trash and you burn it, it's about half the size of that flag that you're actually throwing away. A small trash-to-energy plant just in Newburyport, just serving Newburyport, I think might be viable for 5-10 years down.
Okay, Dave, I'm just trying to get through questions. We're going to do public comment. Anybody else have any questions for the presenters? Okay. So I'm going to actually ask our handy Ward 1 counselor just to, if you can come up here, Mary, you're on public comment. So yeah, so you can come up and take the microphone from him. I'm trying to sit at my computer and also take notes, so I'm kind of doing both things here. So Walt Thompson is first on the list. Can we try to keep these to about 1.5 minutes so we can get out of here by 9 o'clock? We are going to have another meeting. I'm going to have public comment at every meeting, and even if you want to get up and say the same thing, you can get up and say the same thing. So we'll make sure that everybody gets to talk at the next meeting as well. John, absolutely. Yep.
Walt Thompson, 100 State Street. I just want to thank Molly and her team for putting together this program. I'm most happy to see, as a condo owner, that you're keeping services equal. It appears that you're trying to treat everybody equally, and I appreciate that. And I think that's a key part of the success of this.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Ginny, do you want to talk? Yep.
Really, my question was about business, but really I want to applaud Molly and the committee because I think a program like this is needed in Newburyport. Definitely as a resident. I would hate to see something impact the downtown of Newburyport that would create a blight. And what Sharon had mentioned about the mishmash of some communities that have self-pay, I think that would really create a big problem in downtown. So I'm glad to hear that that's not an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Laurel Hankey? Laurel, yes, there she is.
Hi. Just a couple things that keep coming up in my mind that we don't talk about maybe as much is a couple of diversion possibilities, as somebody was talking about with fabric, with your clothing, your towels, your sheets, your worn-out socks, your mismatched socks. I mean, all those things have a way to be diverted. It's really easy. There's lots of boxes around town, and at the office, recycling office at the City Hall, we can definitely help you find those. And plastic bags, a lot of people, I don't know if everybody, I notice like when my kids' friends come over, a lot of the trash is things like fast food, like a bag that has some food in it, some wrappers in it, some cups in it, some liquid in the cups. And it really doesn't take too much time to dump the liquid out of the cup, put the things that are recyclable in the recycling, put the food wherever you put food, separate that stuff a little bit. I just know that fills up my trash really fast until I sort it out, and then it really isn't that much. And I was just going to say we have, and plastic bags. There's almost every plastic bag that you get can go back to the supermarket, and we'll be happy at the city recycling department to get more specific about how to do that and what to look for. And we do, I do have my two millennial sons are living at home, and we have, I don't know, probably 32, 35 gallons most weeks, and some weeks no trash. And my husband's.
Sarah Hall.
Sarah Hall, Arthur Welch Drive. I wanted to address the issue about families, large families, that this might be unreasonable or unrealistic for them, and I don't agree. I think the idea that people will be forced to purchase the bags isn't really accurate, because the city has done such a wonderful job of providing us with alternatives like the recycling center. Compost options are growing, and so it's a choice. Anything over 32 gallons really feels to me like a choice. And you can choose to purchase the bags. I like to see that as a disincentive. And if people are choosing other things and we're not selling the bags, I see that as a win. I see that as a win, because the goal here really is to reduce waste.
Thank you. Mel Nagler?
Thanks. Mel Nagler, 3 Market Street. I just have a comment about one small sector of Newburyport, and that is the small multifamily buildings. You had one line that you said you were going to be coming up with rules and regulations to make that fair. And a 63-unit condo development that somebody was referring to, you can have 1 or 2 dumpsters or whatever. But in 3, 4, 5, 6 unit, it's not quite so simple to do. And when you come up with these rules and regulations, I think it'd be important to keep those buildings in mind also, in terms of how this number of barrels is going to be stored, who's going to police within the building, and other issues that are not top of my head. But it's a different animal than a 63-unit or of a single family.
Yeah, no, we've actually thought about that, and we have plans for that kind of situation.
I've got Charles Gaylord on here, though, but Charles said, yeah, thank you. That's what I thought. John Demerit? John, okay.
I'll keep it brief because I already had my question answered. My experience, I had raised 2 children here in Newburyport. They're both back in the house. We've struggled to get less than, say, 64 gallons a week in trash. So admirable that you were able to do it, but I deal with the same thing with fast food and things like that, and I am on it. But it seems to me that the 32 or 35 is a very unrealistic number. I think it's a real penalty to the residents in town. We're allowed 96 now without being charged for anything. To me, a 50% reduction on that to 48 might be a reasonable place to start. And I think the council needs to be the voice of reason when you decide what you're going to decide on this. And that's what we voted you guys for, and I hope you consider that when you do, and try to look at this through the lens of the residents in town. Goals like this are lofty, and clearly there's a waste problem in the country that we need to deal with, but we need to look at the residents here and how it's going to impact them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Zink.
Mary Zank on 6 Laurel Road. I actually grew up in town with 7 kids, so now I've had 5 of my own, and certainly going from 3 barrels down to 35 would be very difficult. And I have 2 daughters that are disabled, so you can't always control when you have a challenged child. I do recycle. We always put out at least 2 barrels of recycling, and on average, I usually have 1 or 2 barrels. And my father's down in Ting Street. He's lucky he's got a half barrel. But there are different families that have different things that needs. And my other question is, do we know what does this cost per household that we're being charged in our negotiation with Mellow? Because is it more than $30 a month to get 2 full barrels and unlimited recycling, what I'm paying in Salisbury at my home? Because if it is, then I'd prefer to pay on my own. I really think that, I'd rather be able to allow 2 barrels and unlimited recycling than take this. Where is this money going? Are we going to set up a new vendor? Is it going to, so that we can look at it in a year and see if you've made a profit on this? I mean, this is a number of questions that I still feel are very unanswered.
Dave, I think you had a good chance to talk. Are you okay with me skipping you in the interest of time? Okay, thank you. Brian McCloskey.
Yes, Brian McCloskey, 3 Rights Court, Newburyport. I just want to commend Molly. We're kitty corner neighbors, and her committee on the work they're doing. Been following her and the articles in the paper. It's interesting, Molly, through Molly's assistance, we decided to go with the Black Earth program this year, and we were shocked at what it did to our garbage. It basically cut everything almost by half or more. Our garbage is so light now. We have 5, 1 teenager, 4 adults in our house, and we barely fill up one pail of garbage. So I realize the city's talking about the composting. I would really encourage you to look at other ways to educate people in town, because I can speak from experience. It's been remarkable. And the other comment I had was, we live on a private court, so the town does not service our street, which I think is unfair. And I don't quite understand. We have 3 houses that live on the street. We're right off Toppins Lane. Garbage truck goes right by, and I don't see why people have to wheel their garbage. The same people who pay their taxes down to Toppins Lane. So that's something that I just want to bring to the committee's attention.
Thank you very much. Art Henshaw.
I may sound like a repeat. I'm the guy in our household who has the privilege of taking the garbage out to the curb once a week, and the compost out to the curb once a week. And since we started composting, I'd say the compost weighs about twice what I take out in trash. So I would encourage, I know how difficult it is to make predictions as to how people are going to behave and what kind of success rate you would have for composting, but I would encourage you to do everything possible to support composting, because I think that's a great way, there's a great opportunity to reduce the total tonnage of trash. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Kolomicki. Robert, did you stay? Oh, yeah. Do you mind? Sharif, do you mind bringing it over? Robert's down at the far end. Robert, are you not going to speak?
No, he's all set. He's set.
You're good? Okay. Jim Gillespie.
I'm Jim Gillespie, 19 Merrill Street. We're new to town. We spent about 18 years in Topsfield, and I raised 3 kids in Topsfield and had no problem with the Topsfield program. Our house, because we have a lot of family in the area, became the magnet for family gatherings on weekends, and so we had a lot of extra trash. We began composting in Topsfield, and it reduced our trash. But since moving to Newburyport, somehow our house has still become a magnet for family gatherings. And we participated in the Black Earth program because we didn't feel like we had space and we just wanted to get involved in it. And part of it was because when my wife printed out the list of what could actually be composted, and I was just shocked. I mean, what we'd been composting previously did reduce our trash. Our trash over the last 2.5 months has been reduced, just like one of the other residents said, probably 40 to 50%. With family coming back, sometimes I think, okay, I'm going to go take the trash out and I go pick it up and I'm going to break my back. It's almost empty. That little bucket, because it compacts, fills up. And it's amazing how much you can actually fit in there. I mean, there's meat, soy-based inks right now in newspaper. I had this discussion in my office because people were surprised that even paper towels, you can put paper towels in there. And it's just amazing how much you can actually reduce your trash. So I think as a society, I'm not picking on Newburyport, but I think as a society we've become kind of weenies to kind of where our trash goes and where our food comes from. And I think we really need to kind of get a grip because when you look at this, if we're going to let our trash go out to Ohio, I mean, come on. I mean, we're New Englanders. We've reinvented stuff. I mean, we can do better than that. So, I mean, I'm just, with respect for all the other comments, that's all I'll say right now because one other comment. Hands. How many people in this last week purchased like a Dunkin' Donuts coffee? Okay? Or Starbucks coffee or somewhere. That coffee probably cost someone, what, $3, $4? To buy a bag, I mean, that's like nothing, right? I think we need to do to the committee, and I really applaud the committee for all the work that they've done, and Molly, but I think that there should be more effort to educating people on the composting because that can solve a lot of the problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sheila Tainter.
Dexter Street. I just want to support the program as proposed. I think 32 gallons is adequate when people take all the other measures they can to reduce their waste. And thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Sheila. To the point. I love it. Olivia Sullivan. Not that anybody else wasn't, of course.
Hi, I'm Olivia Sullivan from 41 Summit Place. I'd just like to say that I think this change is a very reasonable thing that we could do for our community, and we know that our waste production is an issue, and we know that changes need to be made, but the changes aren't really being made, so I think this option could be very helpful in doing that in our community.
Hi, I'm Samantha Raquel. I live on 12 Chambridge Drive. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Molly. You really act as somebody to idolize, going out of your way to continue environmentalism. And I just want to say that I think a lot of people suggested simpler ways to solve this because of the inconveniences that it might bring in everyday life. But I think overall, changing our ways is detrimental to saving the earth. And yeah, thank you, Molly.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone Allen. I live on 2 Stanley Ave. I also want to applaud the whole council for everything you guys have done. It's really admirable. And Newburyport as a whole is a city that we can actually enact this change, and we have the leniency to do so. So why not do it? Despite the minor inconveniences that it may do and cause families, this is definitely attainable. So I think we can do it.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and being patient. We're going to hit the 9 o'clock perfectly. I'll take a whoop. Oh, sorry, John. That's right.
I came here originally with a whole bunch of questions, but you guys, for the most part, addressed those. I was 30 years in the supermarket industry, and waste management is huge. To your compliments, we had directors of waste management. The thing you got to all keep in mind is it's a commodity. So you can reduce, and it can still go up, or vice versa. We used to store cardboard for months. It's stock market, playing the market. That aside, no one can argue with these environmental issues. Nobody. You should see the environmental issues. Laws now that govern supermarkets, where they can throw produce and cartage, which is the meat waste and all that. My concern and my question is directed towards something very different. I'm also a taxpayer. Oh, P.S., I was regional director of International Paper, so I know a little bit about recycling. As a taxpayer, when you're removing $1.5 million, there's no such thing as free trash. I'm paying for it right now. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you my tax bill that I just got that's up again. No problem. I don't have issues with that. But when you take something from my property tax and you want to shift it over to a fee, I love that word revenue neutral. And somehow, Councilor Khan had a meeting last week, and she explained, how to raise all the fees and the bags and everything else. And when asked the question that I'm asking now, the answer was, it's too complicated. Of course it is. Easy up, not so hard down. So as a taxpayer, we have a budgeting process. In the supermarket chain, we didn't put fees on waste management to customers. We had to adjust our budgets. And if that meant prices had to go up, they went up. But to me, honest to God, this is an end run around 2.5 that's been used for decades now. I've watched the buses disappear from my property tax. My kids rode the buses for free. Now it's hundreds of dollars. Activity fees to join a club. When I was a kid, we didn't even hear of anything like this. So the challenge I want to give you, ladies and gentlemen, is you got to look at something a little revenue neutral. And the other thing I agree with Larry on and David, go to Kmart. Well, Kmart's gone. Go to Walmart. Go to Home Depot. I was out today. The standard small plastic trash barrel on wheels is 36 gallons. And I see a lot of 35. Where'd that come from? 32. And as far as the carting company, you're going to shift, Larry had this right, you're going to shift $67 a ton to $87 a ton. What does that do to the city budget? And that's why we have the process. You get elected. There's budgeting processes. You either put it in the budget, you give a 2.5, but you do it that way. You don't fee me. What's next? So, and we've watched rising sewer fees and water fees, all necessary. Okay? My property tax, I won't show you the bill 5 years ago. So, and I do think Dave's not wrong. You can't go to the Pritikin diet tomorrow. And everybody here, we have extremes. We have people that are meeting it. By the way, someday show me how you're getting all those diapers into one can. You should be an engineer. And as far as the fast food cups and things, if you look at Europe, they're waxed. They can't go in your recycling, if you don't know that. A waxed cup can't go in. So if you're doing that, whoever mentioned that, you're violating the recycling. The one suggestion I'll give you, Joe, is there is a process called two-stream. You guys are absolutely familiar with it, okay? You can do it's called dual stream now. We used to call it two stream. You can, subdivide recycling. Put a big sticker on the cans, no, and show pictures of things that don't go. So I think more work must be done here. I walk away with one thought here. There's more work that's got to be done. Period.
That's agreed, John. Thank you very much. That's a good way to end it. So we will have another meeting. I anticipate we'll have multiple meetings. We'll come together on days that we have to have Larry, myself, or Tom O'Brien, at least two of us here. So we'll come together on days, also coordinate with the sponsors, and we'll make sure we get the word out. Thank you very much for your patience and sitting here in the heat. Molly, thank you very much, and thank you very much to the committee. You guys did a great job of answering lots of questions. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
So moved. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.